Yes. Exercise 5H. And in order to do 5H, you need to know how to do 5G, which is expanding. Now, let's recap on expanding so you can see what you're meant to do in 5H. Here's the example of 5G. You might have something like this. I'm going to start off pretty easy. Okay? They will ask you to expand. Okay? So I need to expand these brackets. Using what you know from last session, how do I expand these brackets? Let's go with... All right, James.
3 times x plus 3 times 2.
Very good. So the order, remember, it's 3 groups of every term inside the brackets. 3 groups of x. I want you to write it down. There has to be an intermediate step. Question, method, answer. So 3 times the x and, so I use the word, the symbol plus to say and. 3 times or 3 groups of 2. That's one I want to see in your exercise books. Okay? Then we simplify that. So we say, all right, well, what's 3 times x? How do I simplify 3 times x? Let's go with Jack. How do I simplify 3 times x? What's another way of writing 3 times x, Jack?
3 times x. 3 times 3 times 2.
No. We don't know what 3 times x is, so we're going to rewrite it as 3x. Very good. So we're going to write 3x plus 3 groups of 2, Krish? 6. Very good. So I know 3 groups of 2 is 6. Now what you see here, so I'm just going to write on the side, this is called expanding. So as you're writing in your notes, I want you to write on the side, this is to expand. Okay, so moving from the brackets down to this expression, that's called expanding. So there's no brackets. What you're doing now is you're going backwards. Okay, this is called factorizing. Factorizing. Okay, so make sure to draw that arrow just to remind yourself. Your goal is to be able to go back and regroup them into brackets. That's called factorizing. Technically in year 11 and 12, this is the preferred answer because it's simplified, it's nice and grouped. Whereas this here is an unorganized term, meaning it's too spread, too many terms. Here I've got 2 terms, 1 and 2. In year 11 and 12, they prefer to only have 1 term. So notice this is 1 term because between the 3 and the bracket, what's happening between the 3 and the bracket again? What's here? Times. And remember, I said you only have different terms if you have a plus or minus in between them. In this case, it's times. That's why it's only 1 term and not 2 terms. Okay, I know there's a plus here, but that's inside the brackets. So 3 and the brackets are multiplying each other. That's why we call it 1 term.
One term and the other 2?
Yep, so inside the brackets there are 2, but as an overall, it's 1 term. Okay, so it's like saying 3a.
The terms are only if there's a plus.
Correct.
But not if it's in a bracket.
Correct. So the 3a, as an example, you would say this is 1 term because in between it, it's times a. There's no plus or minus. If it was 3 plus a, you would have told me there are 2 terms. Okay, so in year 11 and 12, they prefer your answers in this form, which is factorized. But a lot of students struggle with factorizing. So that's why I'm going to spend time to make sure you understand how to factorize. Okay? Here we go. So that's the expression that you need to understand. We're going to start off in 2 phases. To factorize, you have to first find the highest common factor between the 2 terms or 3 terms. You have to find what's common between them all. Okay? So let's start off simple. In this example here, I want you to copy the example down. You've got 3 scenarios going from easy, medium, hard. Let's look at the first one. The first one's pretty straightforward. You got 20 and you got 35. Now you're going to go through your times tables. What's the highest common factor for 20 and 35? The best way to do it is to break it up into their factors. Some of you who are really fast with their times tables, they should be able to tell me what's the highest common factor of 20 and 35? 5. Very good. So those who can say 5, great. Fantastic. For those who didn't know, what you have to do is you have to write all the factors of 20 and 35. So think about it. What multiplies to each other give you 20? I can have 1 multiplied to 20. That gives you 20. What else?
2.
5 times 4.
10.
Good. 2 and 10. And what else?
5, 4.
5 and 4. So I'm going to write here 4 and 5 there. Those are the factors to make up 20. Then you do the same for 35. What are the factors of 35? I got 1 and 35, but what else?
5.
5 and 7.
5 and 7. So now you look at the list and you say, what's in common between the two? And we can see here, they both have a 5 and they both have a 1, but we want the highest common factor. That's why the answer is 5. So that you only do it this way if you're still working on your times tables and you're trying to break it apart. That's what I want you to do. Those are called factor trees. Okay, so you're breaking it out into the factors, but if your times tables are fast, you should be able to get straight to the answer straight away. Okay, highest common factor for the first one. This is the first phase. You need to be able to find HCF of numbers. Part B, now they're going to introduce a variable, and a lot of students find this tricky, but it's the same deal. Here we go. Same thing, I'm going to do 18A, and the other one's 24AB. So I treat them individually, because 18 is the same thing as writing 18, what would you A? What would you do with the A? Times the A. So when you times the A, that means A is also a factor. Because you see here is 1 times the 1 times the 20. 20 is a factor, 1's a factor. So when you times, they become factors. So that's why A is also a factor. Let's split up 18 now. So 18 is easier to split up as factors. What are the factors of 18?
6.
You got 6,
3.
3, 1, 18, 2 and 9. Very good. So that there are split up 18 and A. So what are all my factors? Remember, you have, I'm just going to write here so you can see, you've got A, 18, 3, 6, 1, 2, and 9. You do the same thing for 24AB. So let's break this one apart. I'm just going to move this across. Again, this means 24 times A times B. So the factors, I've got factor A, I've got factor B, but now I need to split up the 24. So good, I've got 6, 4, 24. What else? Factors of 24. 1, 8, and 3. So now you look at the two list and you say, what is my highest common factor? So what do they both have in common?
6.
They've got a 6. Good. So I can see they've got a 6.
A 1.
They've got a 1. They've got a 3. So they both have a 3. Very good. What else?
That's it.
No, there's something else. And the A. They both have the A. So when you say highest common factor, I know that definitely 6 is the highest number, but I don't know what A is. So that's why I have to include it as well. And the answer is 6A. That's the highest common factor in this group. That's the difference between B and A. Okay, now let's test your understanding. We're going to move it a bit even further now. C has a square there. So let's see if you can break this apart too. So I want to do it here. C, let's do it. 12x, and the other one is 15x squared. Okay, so let's break this apart slowly. It's the same thing again. 12 next to the x just means 12 times the x. X is a factor, so I've got x is a factor. What about 12? Break them into their factors.
2, 1, 12, 3, 4.
Very good, that was very fast. And that goes back to your times tables. The faster you are with your times tables, the more you can figure out what multiplies to 12. Then you break out the 15 and x squared. So here we go. 15x squared means 15 times x squared. But what is x squared again?
X times X.
X times x. So I'm going to break it apart now. That means x times x. So that means you have two factors of x here. Okay? So x is a factor, but you've got two of them. Whilst over here, 15.
1, 3, 5, 15.
Very good. So now you contrast the two and you say, what's my highest common factor between them all? What do they all have?
8.
Very good. They all have a 3.
And an X.
And they also have an x. Very good. So that means my answer for the highest common factor has to then be 3x. Okay.
What if they both had 2 X's?
Very good. See, I love that. So in the year 8, they don't always do this, but in year 9, they do. What if they both have 2 x's? Yes. You would then write x squared. So in year 9, this is the difference between 8 and 9 here. It's a small tweak. this is what you'll get. So you could get something like 12x squared b plus 15 x squared a. This here is an example of, if we were to do it, you would say common factor is 3. There's the highest common factor of 3 there. But notice this is x and x. This is also x and an x. So your final answer, highest common factor, should be 3x squared. Okay, so that happens in year 9 more so. But if you do happen to see an enrichment, as you're doing the enrichment questions, you might have the squares there. But yes, you're right. If you have 2 of the same common factors, you include them as well. Okay, in this case, there was only 1x. There was only 1x, so you only include 1x. Okay, but that was a good question. It was very good. All right. So that's the first skill. First phase is for you to identify highest common factor. So let's see if you can do this now. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. It's currently 2:25. I want you to find the highest common factor of 24 and 36, highest common factor of 15x and 20xy, and the highest common factor of 12a and 18a squared. Let's go. 5 minutes. Show me that you understand phase 1. So phase 1, you have to be able to find highest common factor. Then I'll show you phase 2. Okay, I'm going to come around. Sorry? If you don't have a common factor, then that's it. Then there's always going to be 1. Because every time you write the factors, there's always a 1. Something. We ideally would want more than 1. But if there's nothing else, then there's just 1. Let's have a go. 5 minutes. Have a go with 5H. Finding the highest common factor. I'm giving you 5 minutes, and I'm going to call you out randomly to give me an answer. I'm interested. Find the highest common factor. Break them apart. Factors of 24. Factors of 36. So it goes from easy, medium, hard. Okay, so A is meant to be easy. That's revising your year 7 in primary school mathematics, finding factors of 24 and 36. B now introduces a variable, and then C is where it's tricky, and that's where I want to see if you can get there. 3 minutes left. 3 minutes left. Find the highest common factor of each of those 3 terms. What's the highest common factor for A, 24 and 36? That's a common factor. Thinking about all the numbers that multiply to get you 24, all the numbers that multiply to get you 36. What do they have in common? What's the largest number? Do the same for 15x and 20xy. Challenge yourself, you're going to try 12a and 18a squared. This one?
Wait, do we have to do this? Unless we want to study it.
Well, a lot of things. In a sense, I know you're asking when you would use algebra. You don't use it. It's like saying Shakespeare. Why do you study Shakespeare? Did you ever read Shakespeare? Well, what's important is that the skill that you use to do that. So, what's the skill that you do in Shakespeare? Read, analyze something that is ancient text. It's meaning to be extrapolated, right? Same thing with mathematics. It's not this. You're not going to be doing this. You know what you'll be doing. You're thinking about what's logical. So when I get you to do A, B, and tell you to lay it out, what I'm getting you to do is to check your answers. You're being critical, analytical, logical, decisive. To be able to say to you that that is definitely the correct answer, what confidence have you got in doing that? How do you know that it's correct? How do I know that I'm always correct? You know what I mean? Like, what makes me different from you? And that's the skill that you want to train. And the subject of mathematics in general is just logic. Because back then, in fact, mathematics didn't exist. It was the idea of philosophy. It's formed from philosophy. It was the idea of, well, how do you know that you're correct? And it's like, well, this is A and it's meant to be the same as B, so they use equal signs. And they're like, A equals B. That equals each other, so you might start with A equals B, but B is equal to C, does C equal A? Something like that. So it's through logic, it's just more mathematics. So what we're training. Well, you might not. You might not choose to do that. It's part of your course. But it's depending on what course you want to get into, what career. Every career or some life form, you need to have logic. You need to be able to apply decision making and reasoning as to why your choice is the best choice. So when you're buying a car later on, which you probably will at some point, how do you know that buying this particular car from this particular company is the best choice that you make? You would have gone through research, you would have done some sort of comparison. So how would you compare it? You might use tables that you can on this, you might find percentages, you might find ratios, but how do you know that the car that you bought is the best? And some people don't. Actually, most people don't. Most people just go for convenience and just pay. And that's how people make money from it. They make money because they know you're doing things out of convenience. But if you actually sit down and think about it, calculate things, and you know that there are actually better options out there. Convenience like CBA. Why is Commonwealth Bank one of the most popular banks out there? It's not because Commonwealth Bank is great, they're giving you the best discounts. They don't. In fact, they're the highest interest rates. And why are there so many customers? Because, you know what their scheme was? From primary school, they actually set up back in the 1980s, before my time, they actually set up where they have programs where they get every child one of those banking.
I still have that, and that's why I have my
And no other programs done that. NAB hasn't done that, but it was good marketing technique. And it makes you much more inclined. You set up yourself in primary school. By the time you grow up, you're like, yeah. So they don't offer the best rates, yet you don't change them. Most people don't change banks because it's convenient. So on a logical sense, it should be. But then to be able to be critical and analytical, there's the skills that you want to build. And these are just exercises to help you build those skills. But yeah, you're right. You're probably never going to do this again. I do it because I teach it, but I do it sometimes when I'm doing my calculation taxes if I need to figure out how much I need to save. So I say X is the amount I need to save, this is the percentage, this is the X amount of years. So I know how to model it, and I can do it. Some people don't. Some people pay accountants to do it for them. They wing it, just guess. But the skill we're trying to teach you is to be critical. To be able to say, my answer is right, or my answer is definitely wrong, something's weird.
Is this question?
Wow.
Yeah, I'm coming.
It's perfect.
That's good.
These right.
You like it is so good. 12. Yes, 12 is correct. This one, you got the numbers correct. This one doesn't have all All right, let's check your answers.
No. Is there a difference if there's a minus sign for HCS? Or if it's like -2 and just 4, would it still be 2?
Oh. If they both have a negative, you can. So in year 11 and 12, you can then choose which one you want to do. In this particular case, if they don't both have a negative, you won't write it. But technically you can. Technically you can. All right, here we go. Let's look at our answers. What did you get for A? Can I please have Logan? What's your highest common factor? 6. You had 6. Anyone had better than 6 or just 6? Lila. 12 is the correct answer. 6 is a factor, but it is not the highest common factor because I know 12 and 2, and this is 12 and 3. So the highest common factor is 12, even though 6 does work as well. Okay, so highest common factor should be 12. Very good. Next one, B. Can I please have, let's go with, yes, Cooper.
So you would go 15, 5, 3, 15, 1.
Very good.
And you would go 10, 2, 5, 4, and X and Y. And then either X, Y, and then X again.
Yep.
And then you find the highest, which is 5. And then you get the X's, and then your 5X.
Very good. Excellent. So list it all out. The numbers are the ones that you're training with. Letters should be easy. So letters, we can see that there's 1x on this side and there's 1x over there. The numbers depend on your multiplication tables. Okay, the faster you are, the easier it becomes. So 5 and 5, very good. So your highest common factor should be 5x. And then finally on C, what did you get for C, Maddie?
6A.
6A, and that is, anyone got any different, or they also got 6A? Hands up if you got 6A. Very good. Excellent. 6A is correct. So again, that's 1, 2, 6, 3, and 4, and 12. They have a letter A there. 18 is 1, 2, what is that? 6, 3, 9, and 18. And don't forget, A squared is A and an A. So together, what do they both have in common? They both have an A, and they both have a 6 as the highest common factor there. Okay, so your answer is 6A. Very good. So that's the first phase that you would need to know in order to move through the next questions. This is the final skill that you have to have, which is moving from expanded version back to factorized version. So if you have a look at the example I gave to you before, we're now trying to move from here, 3x plus 6, back to 3 times x plus 2 in brackets. That's what you want to do. Okay, so here we go. How do we do this? So first thing you got to do is find the highest common factor, phase 1. So phase 1, let's have a look. Highest common factor. If you're looking at these two terms here, 6x and 15. Factors of 15. What are the factors of 15? What do we have? Let's go with Luca. What's factors of 15?
5.
5.
3.
3.
1.
1. 15. Very good. Then I'm going to do factors of 6. What are the factors of 6? Let's go with Ryder. Give me factors of 6.
Factors of 6.
Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Good.
And itself.
And itself. Very good. 1, 2, 3, and 6. And don't forget the letter here. We've got x. So now let's compare the two lists. What's my highest common factor? 3. Very good. They don't have an x in both of them. They only have a 3. So my highest common factor has to then be 3. So now, how do you write your answer? So this is where I want you to pay attention. So eyes and ears towards the board. Once you know what the highest common factor is, that's phase 1. Phase number 2. When you write your answer, so 6x plus 15, I want you to write the equal signs. And here, this is where you write the number 3. Write the number 3, and I want you to put it in brackets. Okay, so this is what you're doing. You are writing 3 as your highest common factor, writing in brackets. Now you ask yourself, remember it's the opposite. If expanding is timesing, the opposite of multiplying has to be what? Dividing. So what you're actually doing is you're taking each term and you're dividing them by 3. Okay, see what I'm doing there? I'm actually thinking in my mind, 6x divided by 3. This goes back to exercise 5D. Very good. 6 divided by 3. What's 6 divided by 3?
3.
Not 3. 2. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So it becomes 2x plus, what's 15 divided by 3?
5.
5. Very good. This is your factorized answer. So my answer is 3 bracket 2x plus 5. That's what they want you to do. So you can see here, if you expand this, you should get that. If you factorize this, you should get this. Okay, that's the skill. So the first step is to find 3. Once you know it's 3, you need to divide each and every term by that highest common factor. That's where it's coming from. So the opposite of expanding, which is timesing, the opposite of that is divide. That's what you're actually doing. Okay? Some students learn it differently. Some students go, if I got a highest common factor 3, 3 times what gives you 6x, and 3 times what will give you 15. Some students like it that way. I'm teaching you the proper way. Okay, so the proper way is you're actually taking a factor out by dividing, because you're doing the opposite of timesing. That's how you go back and forth. One's times, The other one's divide. That's how you go back and forth. Okay, let's do another one. I'm going to do this one over here so you get a feeling of it. Same thing. Highest common factor. What's the highest common factor between 12a and 18ab? I can already see that both have an a, so I'm going to write an a first. But what's the highest common factor 12 and 18? 6. So your highest common factor should be 6a. All right, so that's how fast you should be working at. Then I want you to write the question again. So it's 12a plus 18ab. Underneath, I want you to write equals. Here we go. Highest common factor was 6a. Then write the brackets. So write out the brackets. What you're actually doing here is you're dividing. I'm going to make this a bit smaller so you can see. What you're actually doing is you're dividing each of the terms by the highest common factor. So you're dividing this by 6a. You're dividing this by 6a. Okay, because you're saying that's what you're taking out. Now, I know some of you may find that a bit confusing, which comes from 5D. You have to practice 5D to know how to do this really well. Let's break it apart. When you're dividing, you can do numbers with numbers, letters with letters. How many 6 fits in 12? What's 12 divided by 6? 2. So I know the first one is 2, but then what's A divided by A? 1. It's like saying 3 divided by 3, it's 1. 5 divided by 5, 1. So A divided by A is the same thing. We just don't know what that number is, but we know it goes in itself once. So when this cancels out to be 1, we know that 12 divided by 6 is 2, but 2 times 1 is still 2. Next one. Let's work this one out. 18 divided by 6, and numbers with numbers. 18 divided by 6 is? 3. So we write down 3. A divided by A again? 1. So that's where we're cancelling this out. A becomes 1, but 1 times a 3 doesn't change it, and I still have a B. Okay, so there becomes 3B. This is why it's tricky. Can you see why this is a lot of method for a lot of students? They may not like this because there's fractions, there's division. That's the proper way. Okay, so this here, if you tried expanding it, the way you've learned from 5G, it should give you that expression up there. So if you did 6a times 2, it should give you 12a. 6a times 3b should give you 18ab. That's when you know you're correct. Okay, so you don't always have to ask me if you've done it correctly. If you expand this and it equals the exact same question, you've done it right. If you expand it and it doesn't equal, you've done something wrong. Either your expansion was wrong or your factorization was wrong. Okay, so it's meant to be a cycle. You can factorize, you can expand. Now, expand is easier than factorizing. Factorizing requires division, skills from 5D. That's why you got to work on those skills, factors and multiples. Okay, let's do the last one. I'm going to give you your time to ask me questions and see what you can work on. But let's do C together. Here we go. C. Same thing, highest common factor. Let's have a look. So they both don't have any letters the same, so there's no X, no Y. You don't need to worry about that. Let's look at 21 and 14. What's common between 21 and 14? 7. So I'm going to write down 7 as my highest common factor. So here we go. We're going to write the question again. It's 21x minus 14y. And I'm going to write equals. And I know it's the 7 is what I'm writing. Right in.